Hey, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wednesdays. Yep. We're going to get things going here and talk to you guys about Ableton Live 11 Suite. But before we get into that, I'm just going to go through our website here and to let you know that we have our summer camp programs going on, and our academy is just about to start in September. Really excited to get back to our in-person classes. We have our producer program in Ableton and Logic, and then also our academy, our 360 plus hour program right here. Stick around for the hour West Coast Wednesdays hangout that we're doing here every Wednesday, right? Subscribe down below, like, please share what we're doing. And we're here every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Doing music like this. So let's get into some Ableton. All right. So here we are. And we have the session here that we're going to be talking about reverb and delays today, and what can we do with reverb and delays, right? What is reverb and delay? So you can think of reverb as the sound of a room or the sound of a space, right? That large sound that you're hearing with my voice, that's going to be more like a echoey tunnel or a big cave. Something that might be a shorter reverb might be a smaller cave. So you're kind of like creating these artificial rooms to sing into or put your instrument into. So your reverb is like the size of the room that you're playing in, the ambience, right? And the delays, this is a delay. Time delay is working with echo. Like let's say if you yell across a canyon and it bounces back at you, right? That's actually with the millisecond delay of it moving through space out and then coming back to you, bouncing off of something. Similar, reverb does bounce off, but it's kind of a continuous bounce. A delay bounces, right? And it really has that clean back. This artificial delay that we do can really be pretty incredible, because when you get into Ableton here, let's just look at one of the delays that we have set up here. All right. So we have, check out this delay. So we have synced left, right. Sync means that it's to the BPM. Our BPM is at 90 BPM. You can see up here in the upper left-hand corner. And our feedback is about 35%. The feedback is how many times does it keep going before fading out. If I put 100% feedback, it will just keep going around, almost like a loop, right? It'll take a lot longer to delay away. My dry wet is at 100% because this is on my return track. So anything on a return track, I put the effect at 100%, and then whatever you send to that return, right, per channel, is your actual percentage of that. Okay, so it's at 100%. I'm not using any of the filter here, but often what you want to do is make your delay be in a certain frequency. So let's say if we're working with vocal, we don't really want all the low end, right? This is like kick, bass, sub down here. And the high end, might be a little bit too high as well. So, yeah, maybe you're in the vocal range, let's say probably about 4 to 1K, kind of boosting there. Everything else is kind of rolled out. And you can also make it wider if you want. Okay, so let's just try that out. And if you have your stereo speakers on, we are sending a stereo mix so you can hear that bounce back of the 4 on the left side and the 6 on the right side. Okay, and this is going to be talking about timing, right? If you go down here to a 1 and a 2, let's just try this out for a second. A little bit faster, right? So what we're doing here is slowing it down just a tad bit. So what we have is a quarter note on this side, and then a dotted quarter note on the right side. So it's going to be kind of doing that back and forth delay, time delay. All right. So reverb and delay, this is going to be a big game changer for your mix when you really learn how to use this in a way that doesn't take over your mix and make it too muddy. When I'm talking about the mud is when you put on a reverb or delay and you don't roll these off on specific instruments, it can, or have your feedback too much or your dry wet on too much, it can really ruin a mix. So it's really just using it in a good way, not a bad way. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do that right now. We have a vocal track right here, a female vocal track. This is Maren Medkey on a new song. And what I have on here is, let me actually put my voice on a separate channel. All right. So you guys have me down here now, so that when I play this channel, you'll still hear me, right? Now what I'm doing is I'm not going to have anything on this channel to start off. Okay, no reverb, no delay, and you're just going to notice how dry it is, and we're going to start putting all of our effects of reverb and delay onto it. Notice that my chain already has some compression and EQ, a little bit of chorus, which actually isn't on at all. Put that to 12%. A limiter, and this utility boosting the gain. Okay, and a utility at the end of your chain is quite nice because you can change the width of your mix. You can also change, right, your phasing up here of your left and right channel. You can also do your panning left, right, and any automations. It's nice to keep it out of your master chain over here, right? This is the mastering of your left and right of the channel. Double click to go back to center. All right, let's go ahead and listen to this, and here we go.
As this world is learning, I'm called to take a side, yeah. Pray this thirst is satisfied, and I'll hold me tight. Oh, to the rain, come on down, calling. Oh, to the rain, calling.
All right. So you're noticing that this mix is super dry, and what can we do to make this just a little bit better? Okay. Let's go in and just briefly break down my sends and returns. So you can put all of your reverb and delays directly onto the track, but if you do that on every track, your CPU usage is going to be really peaking over here, right? And it actually already is, because we have quite a bit of things going on. By the way, just to do this demo, I froze the Kingsway kit, and I think I froze one more down here as well. So you can freeze other tracks to save on CPU when you're working. So what I'm going to do is go into, these are my sends, okay? When you first get into Ableton, it might just have one reverb and one delay on your sends. And I purposely wanted to add some more into my mix here, okay? And one way to do that, let's go ahead and just limit these as a tad bit more. If you want to do this all at once, you can go ahead and take these and limit them together. All right, so here we are. Reverb 1. My A send. Let's go ahead and change this up there. You guys can see a little bit better on the right hand side of my screen. So my reverb is set to, you can see my parameters down here, 1.22, and I've called this 1.2 reverb. Dry wet signal is at 100%. My low and high cut, actually I probably want to put that a little bit higher. Reflection diffuse is pretty much centered right now. And then I go to my reverb 2, or reverb B, and it's at 2.5. It's actually 2.4 here. Well, I can change this. 2500. Oops. 2500. People sometimes think when they see 2.50 seconds, they just put in 2.5. And what's going to happen there, let me just show you. It drops it to 200 milliseconds because, yeah, we're just dealing with a different parameter here. So 2500 milliseconds is 2.5 seconds. There we go. So that's set to the 25 and then 2.5, sorry. And then Reverb C is set to 3.5 seconds, 3,500 milliseconds. And then we go into our delays. So we have 3 reverbs and 3 delays on our returns. Okay, and I'll get into the reason why. So my first delay is set to 25% feedback, 2-2, sync left, right. Next reverb is 37%, set to 3-3, a little bit longer reverb. And then this last one is set to 35 and it's set to 4-6. Okay, so this is where the time delay kind of bounces back and forth, which is what we were working with in the very beginning when I started to talk. Like this. All right. So what we want to do here is get into our sends and returns. And I do have some automations already set for this. So why don't we just kind of show those? All right, this looks pretty confusing, y'all, and this is the reason. The reason why is that we have a lot of tracks. Okay, your set doesn't need to look like this just at first in session view, but if you want to get into Ableton and really understand it, understand the grid, right? These stop buttons are squares. They can also turn into play buttons whenever you engage, right? This is a record button and then or a play button functionally. And what we want to do is get into putting our reverb on our vocal channels. Now, we want to make sure that we have the correct vocal channel engaged, and it's this one right here. So this is Marin's voice. We're going to listen to this alone. I'm also just soloing this one because this is the one that I'm speaking through right now, so I can continue to talk.
Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere. All the shaking led to breaking down that's futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smoother calling.
If you open this up a little bit, it's definitely going to be a little bit better, right? And also, we are in playback mode right now. We're not in record mode. So I'm going to go into my settings right here. Instead of being at the latency buffer being at 64 samples, we're going to go back up to the higher rate, which is 1024 samples. I'm noticing a larger delay on my voice because I'm talking through here. Just so you guys know, if you guys are ever live streaming through Ableton like this and you guys want to take off the effect, you can easily do that. Just by doing this right here. All right. So what we have here now is my voice going directly into my X32 instead of this device. So I can actually really do a better job not doing this like soloing 2-channel type thing. So let's go ahead and listen into this.
Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere.
All right, notice our sample rate and our CPU is much better now that I changed that setting in our preferences.
Turned around, got
So what I'm going to do is go through each one just a little bit at a time.
Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere. All the shaking, the breaking down that's futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smoother calling. Whoa, to the rain, come on down.
All right, so this one is just going to be at a pretty low volume right there. And then let's go to the next one. Same thing.
Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere. All the shaking, the breaking down that's futile and it's ruthless.
Next one after that.
Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smoother calling. Whoa, to the rain, come on down, calling. Whoa, to the rain.
Bring the vocal back in the mix a little bit.
Oh, to the rain, come on down, calling. Whoa, to the rain.
Bring some of the chorus on. All right. So what I do with the, let me see here. What I do with the delay is going to be on the channel, but also it can be on the group. Notice how I have all my vocals grouped right here, opening and closing them. It's really important that you have your groups, and you can set your parameters to affect all your vocals or just the individual vocals, depending on what you want to do. So here we are doing our delays. Now delays, I don't put on all the way through. Just for example, right? If I put this on all the way through, just even at a limited amount, let's just see what this sounds like. All the shaking, the breaking down is futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smoother calling. Whoa, to the rain, come on down, calling. Whoa, to the rain. Doesn't sound bad actually. So going by each one, right? My different delays that we were describing earlier. So we're just doing like a general delay, trying not to have too much in the mix all the way through, right? So as minimal as possible. You want to stay on the lower side. Like I said before, when you talk about your returns, you can click this button right here, this R on the right-hand side to open up your returns. And notice how I have these set up here, right? 100% the dry wet on every single one of these. But when I go into the actual channel, right, this is where we start doing the percentages, right? So this is, you know, about 40%, about 50%, and so on. So this is where we kind of get our dry wet signal per channel. If you end up doing a dry wet difference on your returns over here, you're just cutting the signal once again. So you can do that, but it just gets really confusing. You want to have like one location where you really see visually, you know, what your dry wet is. And that's what I like to have right here per channel. If I put a reverb or a delay directly onto a channel, right, then I start doing it exactly onto the instrument. An example of that really quick, just so you guys understand what I'm talking about. Let's just go into an audio effect here. Which one do we want? We want reverbs and reverb. As a matter of fact, let me just go into a reverb that I really like a lot. Convolution. It's not coming up in that list. There it is. All right. So we have a convolution reverb here. And let's just go into, put this onto our vocal track that we've been working on. Here's the one. So you can literally drop it right onto the track, or you can drop it into the chain right here. Either way. If you drop it at the very end of the chain, it won't go in the instrument, or you can drop it within the within the rack, I should say, just by dropping it like right there. Very small difference. So that's in the rack. The benefit of putting it in the rack is that you can do your master effects over here. But just going back to what I was talking about, is our dry wet is affected right here. This is your master convolution reverb. There's no other location for this, right? Now, if I was to put this into the rack, which I did, I dragged it over just into the rack. Now what I can do is put it onto one of the macros over here. Okay. So let's say we want it on macro 8, dry wet, right click and go macro 8. Now, what happens is this becomes that functionality. Notice how I'm on macro 8, moving it up and down over here, and it's moving the dry wet at the exact same percentage. So this is one that's reflecting perfectly the signal. So that's a different way of doing it. Let's go ahead and just listen to this. We'll start off at 0 and go up to hear it, and then also we're going to start from 100% and go back down, right? So we can hear all of the effects of the reverb.
Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere. All the shaking, literally breaking down this futile and this ruthless. Should I take on love? Feels for what matters. Feels like falling. Whoa, to the rain, going down. Falling. Whoa, to the rain.
All right, convolution reverb.
Falling.
One of my faves. All right, pretty wet. So we will just kind of leave it at that for now. And I'm going to go back into what I was wanted to get into just a second ago, which is our vocal group. Okay, we have our individual track right here, and then it's inside our vocal group. Anytime you want to make a group, you just select the channels, right click, right, and go group tracks, or select the channels and go Command G, and then name it. All of my groups that I make, I capitalize. That's just my personal preference. It makes it really easy to know what's a group and what's an individual track. As a matter of fact, anything that's not an individual track, I should purposely not capitalize so that I know there's not any group. It's not a group at all. So we'll take these M's and bring them down. Uncapitalize. Okay. So notice on the group here, we have our same sends, A, B, C, D, E, F, right? You can expand this out to kind of visually see that track a little bit more. And how you want to expand that out is you go right to the right of the name, okay? Anywhere else, it doesn't quite work out. But that little bracket opens up. You can expand it out or shrink it down. When you shrink it down, your sends completely disappear, or they turn into just showing where it currently is at, right? Symbol. Now, the other thing you want to look for is if anything has a gray dot on it, that means that you have automation that is not engaged, right? It's kind of muted currently. And but there is automation on it. Anything that doesn't have a gray dot, there isn't automation yet, as what we just saw on this vocal channel. So let's say we want to engage the automation, re-enable automation, re-enable automation, and re-enable automation. All right, so what we have here is, let's go back into our song and go all the way up or down. Where are we going? Take our returns off so we can see this a little bit better. Here's our vocal track. And I'm going to press the A button, and this shows our automation. Okay? Notice how the automation of the vocal all is where is what we're looking at here. Okay. So a few other automations that aren't in yet is right here, show automation, actually re-enable automation and re-enable automation. Okay. So it looks like we have our automations in. And if you want to see these lined up together, you can actually go through and be like, which automations do I have in? Let's find out. We have our mixer, anything with a red dot, right, has automation. So let's go ahead and just open up all of the ones that we have currently. Okay, so C Reverb doesn't have too much going on. We might just want to take off that automation. Okay, so I'm actually going in here. I want to make sure you guys understand what I'm doing. So none means you're not seeing any automation. And then anything with a red dot says there's automation here. Anything without a red dot means you can still automate it. Going into mixer at the bottom, and then it shows our sends and returns. Track panning is here too if you want. And so we're looking at the automations going on. And I press the plus button. You can also do the minus button, but we're looking at the vocal all channel that we did some movements using our MPK Mini to do the automations. We have set the MPK Mini to have a low and high filter sweep, fade to gray, beat repeat, our reverbs and delays, and then also some sweeps. We also have the push to, I say we as myself. I'm the only one here right now. And I'm here every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Thanks for joining. If you're watching right now, we really appreciate the support. We started this kind of mid-pandemic, and we're going to continue this all the way through 2021. So we have a whole playlist of all of our West Coast Wednesdays for free on our YouTube page. And it shows tricks like this, looking at automations of an entire chain in a group channel. Let's go ahead and play this. Now we're seeing this fade in happening, right? One reason why I took my voice out of Ableton and just directly into the X32 is that if I was talking through Ableton right now, my voice would literally disappear with that fade because it's in the vocal all group. All right. So what I'm actually noticing is that this reverb over here, I kind of want to actually have it on specific frequencies. And we could put an EQ on this chain or right before, after this reverb, etc. But I want to make sure that it's only on the reverb and not on the entire voice, because we already have this EQ, right, for the entire voice. So I want to make sure that this convolution reverb changes up and is just on its own return. So I'm going to go in and open my returns and insert a return track. G return pops up. Okay. So this is looking kind of crazy now because we have so many returns, but we can still see that this convolution reverb now we're going to drop into our G return. Okay, this is how easy it is to move a reverb. Now, if you go back into that channel, let's just see what happens now. See, the macro disappears. Okay, it's not moving anything because we actually just took it out of that rack, right? That vocal rack that we just created. And we're going to put it down here on the G convolution. If you don't name the track, this is in Ableton 11, by the way. If you don't name the track and you pull in something, it actually takes the name of that sample or that reverb, whatever effect you put on there. So that's kind of a cool new feature instead of having to name it. And we're at 19% already, kind of where it was before. And I'm going to go ahead and open up an EQ 8. That's my favorite because it has, I would say, the most customization of the EQs, easy customizations. EQ 3 is pretty limited, I would say. So let's just go into basic EQ 8. I think I have one. Yeah, EQ 8. There we go. All right, what I want to do is first put the EQ on, okay, and then put the convolution reverb. So this is actually sending whatever frequencies are coming through here. So let's go ahead and just try this out for a second. We're going to go ahead and turn on our vocal channel, G. Here's G. So G is not on at all, 100%. Let's go ahead and speed up to our...
All the shaking, the breaking down that's futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smooth eye. Calling, whoa, to the rain, come on down. Calling, whoa, to the rain. Calling, oh, to the rain, come on down. Calling.
So what we can do is you can actually purposely disable the extra sounds here, so you can really kind of focus on what you're dealing with here.
All the shaking, the breaking down that's futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smooth eye.
So right there, around 1100.
Oh, to the rain, come on down.
There's a frequency I don't like.
Whoa, to the rain, calling. Oh,
We can-
to the rain, come on down. Calling. Whoa, to the rain, yeah.
So we can take out certain things that we don't like or don't need here.
Me.
And
Turned
4.
around, got lost. I thought you stretched out to reach me. True freedom comes when we're undone.
Turn up our cue point to about
Merciful
6.
Savior.
Now notice when I do this, listen to the sounds you don't like.
Calling, whoa, to the rain, come on down. Calling, whoa, to the rain, whoa, calling, oh, to the rain, come on down. Calling, whoa, to the rain, yeah.
So actually, notice how we can now A/B take off the EQ and notice the difference. So let's go ahead and just solo.
To the rain, come on down, calling. Whoa, to the rain, calling. Oh, to the rain, come on down, calling. Whoa, to the rain, yeah. Felt an ache, turned a quake, questioned the ground beneath me. Turned around, got lost. I thought you stretched out to reach me. To freedom
Changing the
comes
size of
when
the
we're
room.
undone. Merciful Savior, shed a tear for love or fear for what matters makes us greater. Calling, whoa, to the rain.
So this also, the great thing about the convolution reverb is that instead of having to use a separate EQ, you can also use right in here this EQ. Notice how there's just 3 across. So you can do pretty much follow what I just did here, but essentially we just did that, right? We essentially took out certain frequencies, just like dropping here, and then we had the lows dropped out like that, and then the highs brought up, kind of like that, right? But what I'm going to do is just go ahead and bring these all back. You can double click them and they come back to 0. And we're using this EQ 8 instead of the EQ within the convolution reverb. Okay, this is kind of nice to have if you're doing something where you don't really want to do this sweep out of the certain frequencies. I personally knew that around, 1100 or just below that, it wasn't going to work for me. So, yeah. 2K, 1K. Actually, that's around 1500. Yep. So I didn't like those frequencies, so we can just go ahead and drop those out. And obviously all the low end. So this is the part where if you use a reverb and you have all this down here, it's going to muddy up your mix depending on what instrument you have. If in your voice, you don't really need a reverb on that low. There are times when you purposely want that big boom to come out, maybe at the end of a phrase, like thunder, you want that big boom to come out, and you can even automate that to even open up at certain moments. But we're just going to keep this really down for there now.
All the shaking, the breaking down this futile and it's ruthless.
All right, and going on to re-enable. Re-enable all sends. Go ahead and watch in our arrangement view. Pressing A to get out of automation. Taking off our returns because it's just a lot more room. Zooming in, pressing the plus button. It will follow by Command Shift F. All right. So we have quite a bit of reverb and delays going on. Just a recap for anyone that just joined us on our live streams. We're going live on our Twitch, our YouTube, and our Facebook via Garnish Network. Thank you to our 8 locations that are supporting this, and our SF branch, which is sponsoring this West Coast Wednesdays every 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The recap we just did is going through reverbs and delays and putting them on your sends, putting them directly into a channel, why you want to try different ways to do that based on your CPU usage, based on your song, and in your direction of your workflow. There's a lot of things to consider. It's really easy to get upside down in your mix where your CPU is straining and your effects aren't working in your favor. Having a rack and using the macros, right, to control your dry wet signal of a delay or a reverb or even a chorus. So that's what we're going through today. We actually put on this trick of the returns. This is something I learned from Oz Fritz, that he had a template in Pro Tools, which is his DAW of preference. He likes just to kind of bring in a mix in a song to have 3 reverbs and 3 delays. And we even added our extra reverb down. It says EQ. Well, that's funny. So whatever's in front of it, it looks like it changes the name. Let's go ahead and see if I can change this up. Reverb Convo. So that's going to be kind of the main thing here. And actually, there's a few new features in Ableton 11 that we're kind of learning in the process here. My question that just came up for me is, if I put my compression right in the front here, will it change my name? Even if I master, like I purposely said, hey, I want this to be Reverb Combo. So let's go ahead and try this out here. It's great to just kind of teach yourself these tricks. Once you have the basic workflow going on, everything should be pretty quick and easy for you. So notice how I put it in the front and it didn't change the name. And the reason why is because I put it in manually, right? So it stays as a smart kind of machine learning, as if you don't change the name and anything in front of your chain, it will be named that. So that's something new for Ableton 11. I don't think it was in 10 anyways. All right, so we are almost done here. We have another 18 minutes of talking about convolution, reverb in general, delay, and mixing. I'm going to go ahead and just work on a few things here with the voice, because this is just a quick track that Marin and I did just before the session so that we can show you these tricks using reverb and delays with a voice. Now, once you have a voice coming through, you want to normalize it, and you can do that manually by just bringing certain sections up that look smaller, right? By looking at it or listening to it. Sometimes you probably want to listen to it because sometimes the artist purposely is quiet in a certain section. And then we also want to take out certain little things like coughs or ambient sounds. I'm just going to go ahead and go Command E. This is where it starts. Clean that up.
I got stuck, push my luck. Now my heart's bare. Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere. All the shaking, literally breaking down this futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smoother calling.
Taking out some more of the lows.
To the rainbow. Calling, smoother.
So I'm noticing from right here in the beginning on, it's kind of lower in mix. So I'm going to go ahead and just expand this out to this screen so you guys can see it down here. And let's go ahead and move my head so you guys can, whoa, there we go. Don't make my head that big. Come on now. All right, so here we are looking at this audio. Decrease this, and we can slide this over a little bit so we can look at the entire part that we're affecting. Right, up and down. When you have this magnification symbol up here, you can slide it back and forth to view, and you can also go up and down if you have a slider. It's a really nice function for your mouse to have a slider up and down, so you can kind of do your zooming in and out that way. So that's our full little cut that we just did. We cut with Command E, and then we highlighted by kind of clicking on the name. And we're going to go ahead and bring the gain up. This is a new feature in Ableton 11. It's been here before, but they have now your automation over here, and then your actual wave warping and gain structures over here. And we can just start going up. See how big they can get, right? We want to kind of match them to what is coming up after that. So it's actually not too much bigger. Looks like around 7.3 dB. I'm just going to put 7 to round that out. I don't really want this to be bigger than our chorus, right? So let's go ahead and listen to that.
Matters in a smoother calling. Oh, to the rain going down. I got stuck, push my luck. Now my heart's bare. Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere. All the shaking, literally breaking down this view. All the shaking, literally breaking down this futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smoother calling. Oh, to the rain.
It's almost acting as a natural compression, right? Because it's kind of boosting the lowers, and then when it goes up to the high part, it's not actually boosting as much. Minusing out. So same thing here, we're going to Command E and just take this up. We already know now kind of what the general idea of this was, which was around 7 dB.
Felt a leg, turned a quake, question the ground beneath me. Turned around, I lost, I thought you stretched out to reach me. True freedom comes when we're undone, a merciful savior.
Right.
Shed a tear for love, a fear for what matters makes us greater. Calling, whoa, to the rain coming down. Calling, whoa, to the rain, whoa, calling, oh, to the rain come on down.
Moments like this right here, we're gonna cut this. We can then just roll this out. Put your fader. F to follow. Doesn't come on from here again. Command E, highlight, delete, clean up the voice.
See the fires burning as this world is learning.
I say around 5, a little bit less here.
Call to take a side, yeah.
3 dB boost.
This thirst is satisfied, and our holes may dry. Oh, to the rain, come on down, calling.
Cutting this up, I know there's certain sections I do want boost, other ones not so much. I think 3 dB is really what we're at. Just a little bit of it. So I'm gonna go. I'm going to change all my other 7 dB boosts and bring it down to 3 dB. It's just a little bit too much change, even though it sounds all right. All right. So we're really not working too much on reverb and delay right now, but just kind of doing a natural overlook of the vocal track and cleaning up the track a little bit. So cutting this back. And so even though that this is a part that I could bring up by 3 dB, I wouldn't in this moment due to the fact that it's more of a track that a space where it's kind of in the background. Right, so I don't really want to make this up front. If anything now, this is actually something that I might want to put some automation onto. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in some automation. So right here we have our, this is at 100%, convolution reverb is at 100%. Let's go change this up a little bit. So this is a great example of we're doing this a little bit wrong. Okay, 100% and 100%. So that is going to be too much. So you can kind of see it more on this side in our session view. Notice how we're at 100% right here. So we're going to back this up. Okay, so my C reverb is going to be my 3.5 second reverb. And I want to automate that specifically into this track. So instead of on G, we're going to C, drop down this menu from mixer, right? Going to C reverb. And when she starts singing that upper part, zooming in with plus, put your the dots in by clicking on, oops, there we go. And notice now, on that track, just go to C, right? It's 100%. You're gonna actually watch this automation happen that we just put in. It went from about 2 o'clock to about 5 o'clock, right? So dealing with trying to get that wet section, right? More ambient section, increasing our long reverb just for the end of the song right there. All right, and if you have any automations that have a lot of dots like this, you can go ahead and just select that area, right? Right click and go simplify envelope. It's kind of nice because then you can kind of go in and move things around a little bit easier, right? All right, so that's a section that we want more reverb on. Is there any other section that we want more reverb or less reverb on? I think the intro is kind of a similar area, right? It's pretty ambient. Let's... So another way to do it is just to highlight an area and then increase it, right? I'm still on C reverb 3.5 over here, right? Make sure that you're on the right send.
Push my luck, now my heart's bare. Turned around, got lost, I found directions leading nowhere. All the shaking led to breaking down that's futile and it's ruthless. Shed a tear for love or fear for what matters in a smoother calling. Oh, to the rain, come on down, calling. Oh, to the rain, calling. Oh, to the rain, come on down, calling. Oh, to the rain, yeah. Felt a light, turned a quake.
All right.
Question the ground.
So we're hearing the vocals pretty good. Now, here's the last part I want to just share around delays, right? Is we had like our general delays. You can kind of see. Let's scroll back over here. Just kind of generally set, right? Our D, E, and F delay is just kind of sitting. But then we have this one that's going to be kind of thrown on our vocals all. Throwing vocals all could be a little sketchy because if I put another voice in, right, my voice, it's going to throw my voice too. That could be a really good effect. But if you just want to throw this one, you can then right click on showing automation on whatever send you want. Okay. And then when you go back over to your arrangement view, F delay shows up, right? Notice how F delay doesn't have any automations, right? It's not a, any line that is fully red instead of like that dotted red. When it's fully red, it means there's automation. So let's go ahead and do a phrasing of throwing a delay at the end of a phrase. Let's go ahead and bring that up. And zooming in now. All right. So I just want it to be kind of in this area. All right. If you go Command 4, you can go off of grid and kind of have it more smooth. You can also do Alt. When you have a line like this, press Alt and, right, move that to be however you like. Now, I am just kind of curious what it will sound like if we increase our feedback on that delay. So let's go ahead and go into our reverb. I'm sorry, our delay 3/4 F, and increasing our feedback on that. And we got to go back into, where are we in that track? One of the downsides of having so many sends is that when you turn them on, you can't really see anything else. So I'm going to purposely minimize these, right? So when I turn them on, I can make them real small, right? I selected them all and then just brought them all down. And that way I can have my sends there and see my automations by pressing A. Notice how our F delay, I'm able to click on it now and also see where I'm at with the voice. Let's try that one more time. So having a 63% feedback is just ridiculously long. So what I want to do is just put that 63% in a location that I want, right? Which is right here, and dropping that back to 35% and 35% right here. Now, if you right click, you can edit the value, okay? Right click on a dot. This is really important in 10 and 11 Ableton, is to really get precise numbers. Back in the day, you're trying to move this to exactly 35 or 63 and like you wouldn't quite get it. It was really frustrating. So now you can right click it and edit that value by hand. So let's go ahead and go back into that again. Yeah, so that long delay, she's able to actually sing over the top of while that's kind of still going on. I really like that a lot. And this is a great way, something that's great with Ableton in general is that delays, even if you stop, a delay from happening, like this is kind of pulling down our F delay, right? It's still going to have that throw from here all the way across probably to this moment over here, right? Because that feedback is so long. If you're at a live show and let's say you stop in the middle of something, let's check this out. You hear that? It's still throwing it. So you can actually use this stop function in a really powerful way at a live show. By stopping specific clips in session view, for example, having that delay throw continue as you kind of break down, or just have it come out for a moment and have the beat come back in again. So I really love delays and reverbs. It is a huge part of my world. I used to busk on the streets of San Francisco looping with the band Sinclair for a good 3 years plus. And we were able to sell 12,000 albums in the Bay Area doing this busking in around 2005, I would say, to 2008. And the biggest thing that I used was my looper and delays, time delays, tap tempo delays on my guitar and my voice and reverbs. And then that combined with bouncing off the natural acoustics of the buildings down there on 4th and Market. It really helped us gather a crowd with the banging drums of Jesse and Eric, Eric on bass. So we actually had the natural acoustics of the streets, right? To where there was the echo off the wall across the street from us, right? Combined with the effects that were artificially brought in through my pedals. So this is why you can set up a great setting for a live show, and you want to have a sound guy for every natural environment adjust the final mix, right? Because if you go to a certain auditorium, it's going to have certain frequencies popping out differently, right? So on this voice, for example, based on the acoustics in the room that I'm in here, in my kind of home studio area, this works out the best for me here. That said, I have monitor playbacks and, everything set up here to be kind of in a mixing scenario. So, yeah, just something to consider if you are going to be doing live shows is set your reverbs for your environment where you're at, but then you might want to do some minor tweaks of your EQs, for example. So this is going to generally work for any environment based on this song as well. So the frequencies of around 1500 on Marin's voice, that was kind of like a feedback, or it kind of like was kind of, how would you say it? Kind of pinching the ear, hard to listen to. So you can literally still have it in her voice, but you can drop it off in the reverb. You can also come in to her EQ here, right? And notice how it's dropped off a little bit here as well. A little bit higher in the lower. So a lot of customizations. It is now noon, and this is when we end our talk. I realized I was just talking about reverbs and talking about certain frequencies, and you guys weren't even watching. You were watching my face. If you guys like what you're seeing here and getting anything out of the West Coast Wednesdays 11 to 12, please comment, like, and subscribe to our Facebook, our Twitch, our YouTube, and share what you see in here. I'm going to be getting into a bunch of different categories of talks in the coming months and weeks here. I'm going to be doing this every Wednesday through 2021. And let's see here. So today, West Coast Wednesdays, we did delays and reverbs. Next time, we're going to talk about mixing and mastering and template ideas and how to approach creativity and inspiration coming into Ableton and not being overwhelmed by the DAW, right? This digital audio workstation here is not to overwhelm people and push people away from music. It is to inspire people to step into their power in music. And we're here to help you at SF Garnish Music Production and Soul Graffiti Studios. Thank you to the Garnish Network for spreading out this little YouTube to your locations. And once again, we will be in touch very soon. Please like and subscribe, and we'll check out your stuff. If you send it down below, put your links to your SoundClouds and send us an email, sf@garnishmusicproduction.com. We'd love, love, love to hear from you. We're out like this.
Calling, oh, to the rain, come on down. Calling, oh, to the rain, yeah. Felt a lift, turned a quake, question the ground beneath